Paradox.
Welcome back to another episode of Almost Above Average. I am your host, Chris McIntyre, and today we've got a conversation you won't want to miss. My guest today is the one, the only, J.Train McDougals. And together we're diving headfirst into the
That's my real
cosmic
last name.
mystery.
That's my real last name.
It goes together. That's why you're
If
McDougals.
anybody wants to look it up, McDougals. I'm serious.
Yeah, God-given birth name,
I was
McDougals.
adopted by McMedia, so it just makes
Yeah.
sense.
First name, J.Train.
Yeah.
Hold on. So today we're going to jump into the cosmic mystery of the Fermi Paradox. Why, in a universe so vast, have we found so little evidence of intelligent life out there, especially on Earth? Am I right? Is there silence a sign of failure, or are we missing something even bigger? What is up with the Fermi Paradox, J-Train?
All right. So, do you have the definition for the Fermi's Paradox up?
I do not, but we can pull it up right quick.
So, the Fermi's Paradox is why haven't we discovered life? And I can't remember the guy's name. I thought his name was something Fermi's, Dr. Fermi's or something like that. What is his actual name? Anyway, the crux of it is they was asked, why haven't we been visited by aliens? Why haven't we discovered aliens, right? And at the time, and I don't remember what year it was, but it was like forever ago, before I was born, maybe something like that. A scientist started discussing all the different factors that have to be present for life as we know it to exist. When you start adding them up, like
carbon fiber, oxygen,
carbon, oxygen have to be present on the planet to have what we know of as organic life. And then on top of it, you have to have the stuff that on top of that to be able to make energy. It has to exist on a world that is a certain distance from a sun based on the sun's output. So like our sun is a certain size. Our planet is far enough away from the sun to where it can get enough energy, but not burn up, but have enough to where it can drive the energy creation. So like Mercury can't sustain life because it doesn't have a core that generates a magnetic sphere around it to protect it from solar radiation. It doesn't rotate at the right speed. It's too close to the sun. It's too hot. So like those three elements alone prevent life. If you look at Pluto, well, I know it's not a planet. It's a, what do you call it, a dwarf planet now? It's too far. It's too cold, even though it has even though it looks like it has carbon and it has water, it's not in a state that allows life to grow. Mars is small enough to where it doesn't have enough gravity to keep enough air on the planet, and it's far enough away to where it doesn't have the heat. So it doesn't have liquid water to the best of our knowledge. Like there's all these different factors. And at the time, it's like, if you say this, the chances of having this is X, multiplied by the chances of having this is Y. And when you start really adding it up, it's like 1 in a cotillion. It's less than 1 in a cotillion chance, like 0.00001% chance. And then if you multiply that against all the number of planets that we can see, like 1 out of all the planets we can see, maybe even less than that can have a chance of life.
Here, let's do the definition for the listeners at home. I pulled it up. The Fermi Paradox refers to the apparent contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial civilizations existing elsewhere in the universe and the lack of evidence or contact with such civilizations. Although there are billions of stars and potentially habitable planets, making it seem likely that life must have arisen elsewhere, humanity has yet to find any conclusive signs, artifacts, or signals from other advanced life forms. I beg to differ. We got a lot of video evidence of UFOs that the government has released.
Maybe. So let's, even if we don't include conspiracy, even if we go with, we don't have any discernible proof right now. We don't have, no alien has showed up and said hi to the world to be able to know it. Just going with that. The caveat is, when the guy discussed the Fermi's Paradox, there was a lot of stuff that was missing.
Enrico Fermi is his name, the physicist.
Yeah. So Dr. Fermi, there was a lot of stuff we didn't know. At the time that he gave his analysis, we had not detected another livable planet with our technology at the time. Remember, we were still working off of a lot more antiquated technology.
You said this was in the 70s?
I don't know. What year was it? 1950, 1970? What year was it? It was a long time ago. I know that much. It was, I thought it was more than 50 years ago.
During a
Yeah,
conversation at
so
Los Alamos.
75 years ago. So if you think about the state of technology 75 years ago, we had optical telescopes, we had nothing in orbit that I know of, and we had some radio listening devices that couldn't pick up what we could pick up today. Today, we know that planets that could support life, even in general, that are the right distance from the sun, they have the right type of sun, they possibly have elements that can have life, are significantly greater than he had in his calculations. But even with that, there's still a magnitude of different variables in his equation that we haven't surpassed. Like we have since discovered that radio waves that we've been emitting from the planet still haven't made it out of our solar system in a manner that is detectable.
Around 70 planets have been identified as potentially habitable. 5,500 confirmed exoplanets,
Right.
but a small fraction considered potentially habitable.
And
That's a pretty big number.
well, and it may be even more substantial than that. So there's been a lot of stuff that's also been discovered about asteroids that have hit Earth
Mhm.
that they have building blocks like the oxygen, carbon, and other even more complex molecules that could denote life have
Mhm.
crashed onto the Earth. And not from like Mars and not from our satellites, but from outside of our solar system. And we're detecting more and more in that as our technology is progressing, what we're detecting is becoming more interesting and more curious as to, well, hold on, the equation was the implication of the equation that was given with the ratios and numbers that they had, the swags, the best wildest guess, was a lot worse than we now know, like 5,000 exoplanets. And the, how many did you say, 70 planets that could possibly support life?
70 planets are identified as potentially habitable.
And we need to recognize that of the 5,000 planets, those are ones we have only discovered based on the improvements in our technology. That isn't saying that that's all there is. Those are all the ones that have just been identified so far. There could be millions more that we could identify as our ability to observe the universe gets better and better and better, either through better telescopes or better radio frequency detection, or the ability to send probes deeper into space. Like, to the best that I remember, the probe that has gone the furthest that we've ever sent is dying, and it's just now reaching the outer edges of our solar system, or has just passed the edges of our solar system. And it's still sending back data, which is really interesting what we found, like micro pockets of gravity that we don't understand, micro pockets of radiation we don't
On
understand.
asteroids?
No, like in vacuum space. And we've also found that space isn't as empty. There's like stellar dust and gases more available out in space than we'd even anticipated. Microgravity holes, is my understanding, is something we found that we don't understand, like gravity in absence of matter. We don't understand. And it's making us question fundamentals of the
Everything?
universe.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things they've been discussing is dark matter. And that's been highly contentious, right? What is dark matter? How much of it is there? And we're trying, and there's been a lot of arguments about, is this an explanation for gravity that we didn't get into? And you know about subatomic particles, right? Like the quarks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm an
Apparently,
expert.
there's one that supposedly represents magnetism, one that represents mass, and one of them that may represent gravity. We're still trying to understand that from like a fundamental standpoint. There's a lot about that we still don't understand, but they're saying that some of these microgravities that they're finding from the probe may be from groupings and distributions of the subatomic particles in difference to actual matter, could represent changes to our equation for the dispersion and how planets and solar systems move through space, which is really neat.
Or is it a problem of the instrumentation on that satellite that's flying through space going bad?
And we
Right?
don't know. And that's a great like Well, which one is it? We don't know, to be honest.
Right, because we sent that thing up in the 70s, didn't we?
Something like that. I don't know.
The Mars rover. What is the satellite that's
No, not the Voyager. Wasn't that the
Voyager?
Voyager that went
Yeah.
out there? It had the plate with the humans carved into it or something, and the record and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's just flying through space forever, collecting data still.
Yeah, and if it doesn't get hit by anything, it'll just keep going, and who knows when anything will ever be found. In fact, it's interesting. There was a whole discussion I was listening to that said, based on the dark forest concept, which I can explain that if anybody wants to know, um, when we ever get to spacefaring, we should go get that thing and destroy it.
What is that concept you just said? Because I don't know about it.
One of the possible explanations, we don't know if it's true, is the dark force concept. And they talked about it a lot in the Three Body Problem, which is a book and now TV series. And that is this concept of, if a intelligent species ever detected a growing but inferior intelligent species, it is in our best interest to destroy it instead of trying to befriend it, because of a variety of different reasons, but it is better to destroy it. So, for a species to live as long as possible, they should not let their presence known to the greater universe. That's the fundamentals of it. I might have butchered it a little bit, but that's the fundamentals.
That's probably like the basis for like Star Wars and
Well, no,
all
Star
those
Wars is
space movies.
based, it's like, well, a little bit, but
You know what I mean?
a little less. So, Star Wars and even Star Trek and Babylon 5 and Stargate are all based on the more powerful being more benevolent and not caring as much. But in the Dark Forest, survival is paramount, and anything else is a possible conflict to long term survival. And where Star Trek and Stargate and Babylon 5 and a lot of that stuff tend to focus on is the disbursement and capabilities of that species. Whereas in Three Body Problem book series, which includes The Dark Forest as one of the book titles and one of the concepts, the capabilities from a technological perspective can be so vast that it is mind bending as to the capabilities. So in the book, they talk about sending a black hole weapon, and another is a dimensional weapon,
That creates a black hole.
or a dimensional weapon that destroys an aspect. So, like, we live in a four-dimensional world, right? Imagine a weapon that
Or what's the
destroys
fourth?
the fourth dimension or the third dimension.
What is the
And
fourth dimension? Time?
time.
Okay.
So imagine a weapon that collapses a dimension, and we live in a two-dimensional world, and we just
How do
all
you imagine
die.
that? How do you imagine that, Jonathan?
But that's in the book, right? So and that's my point, is the limitations in our understanding become so paramount to our ability to analyze the Fermi's paradox and the Drake equation, all that kind of stuff, that it just doesn't make sense, right? And then there's this other concept that I really liked from a discussion recently, and it talked about the assumptions of what alien life would even be. And a lot of different shows have really discussed this. Like Stargate was great in that, and I think Star Trek did it too, where understanding life on a non-organic level. So everybody talks about, oh, when we meet aliens and they come down, they talk to us and they wave to us, like, you're okay. Now you're assuming a ship or some kind of organic species or some kind of humanoid robotic form. And it's like, not necessarily. If you look at the Bobaverse, which is another book series, it's about, if, and I'm going to probably butcher this, somebody dies, their conscience is owned by a corporation, and instead of that person just dying and ending their contract, their conscience gets uploaded to a probe and sent into space as AI. And so he's serving as the steward of a probe. It is the probe, and he's still owned by the corporation.
That's unfortunate. He never gets to die.
Yeah, that's the whole jux of it. And it's like the
Huh.
survival of the species comes into play. It's a whole really interesting
That
concept.
sounds like an interesting book. I want to read that.
The Bobaverse. It's a whole book series.
So the three
But
body problem, I didn't know that was the story.
no,
I watched the
the
Netflix
dark
show a couple
forest,
times.
the dark forest is the universe that they live in, right?
Right.
And the species that is in there is living with a really bad, we'll call it solar system, where they have two suns and a planet. So we have a two body situation. We have the sun and us. Now the other planets play a role in how we move through the solar system, but whatever. But we rotate functionally around one. But they have two suns and their gravity affects each other, and then they have their planet is affected by both of those. So as those bodies, because of the different sizes, play out, they can't anticipate how close and how often and what the frequency is and what the cadence is of their exposure to the suns, both of their suns, right? It's a binary solar system. And because of that, their apocalyptic exposure to these suns triggers differences in how their genetics work and how their technology works. And it's just a horrible living situation. We look like a paradise compared to what they go through. So when we reach out because of events that happen in the book, you can go read the book, and they detect us, they're like, shit, that looks like paradise. So the book starts happening. And that's their situation. So the idea that planets revolve around one sun is even another part of the equation that we didn't even really get into, right? That the solar system is structured in a way that has one sun and multiple planets and blah, blah, blah. Which honestly, based on what we continue to learn about the universe, becomes more and more interesting. My understanding is that all matter is based on the fusion. So like iron and uranium comes from activity from the sun that gets ejected over time. It's like this whole thing. Now, I don't pretend to understand that significantly more. It's just a interesting aspect that we didn't even calculate into some of this stuff. Is the volume of planets being uh, in a solar system with one sun. But the dark forest is a possible reason why we haven't discovered aliens is because they're like hiding from us because they're hiding from another that's even more advanced. So everybody's trying to hide from each other so they don't wipe each other out.
So in these numbers that we talked about earlier, like the 5,500 confirmed exoplanets with 70 identified as habitable,
And
the
at
observable
least one of
universe.
them possibly being already populated with organic life based on some of the markers they see from the radio frequency scan of that planet, that there are signs of a material that is generally created from an organic carbon-based life form, and they found it and they think that the probability is that that planet does have life. It's like crazy.
That makes sense to me because I just pulled up how much of the universe can we actually observe, and it is a fraction. So those numbers we just discussed are coming from a very small fraction of what we know of the universe. So
and
it doesn't make any sense to me that aliens do not exist, like intelligent life forms don't exist.
and there's a even further development. So there's a concept that they were floating around that we may be in a pocket universe of a main universe. So one of the black holes that we may observe may be of how the matter in this universe is formed, that we may be inside a universe created from a black hole.
I have no fucking idea what you just said.
So you know what a black hole does, right? It's out
It
there and it
sucks in everything.
yeah, but where does that stuff go? It doesn't just
Nobody knows.
but well, so there's two leading thoughts and both could be right depending on the black hole. One is that it forms a pocket universe on the other side. It collapses and creates a pocket universe. So it's a universe in a different that exists outside of the main universe, connected via the black hole. Everything that's sucked in gets into that pocket universe. So that's one of the theories is we live in that pocket universe. And here's the really scary part is it by design or is it purely by accident? So if it's by design,
Then God exists.
then maybe it was created by aliens and we are under the zoo principle. which is they created it and they created us in here. And the universe that we're in is part of a greater universe outside the black hole. But we got created in here to isolate us, kind of like running our program in sandbox mode so that we don't corrupt the main program. And we're growing up in here hoping to sustain in some bigger, more superior technologically and an ancient race lives in the main universe and creates others in these sandbox universes until we reach a maturity and then we get brought back into the main universe. Or maybe we have to get
Someone in the
ourselves to that
comments,
main
please.
universe.
Would someone in the comments please explain that to me like I'm two? Because I don't understand any of that.
And then the other concept is a black hole connects two different parts of the universe, and what gets sucked in goes somewhere else. But like
That makes sense. The Stargate thing, right?
Yeah.
So, like the Stargate theory, you could get transported to another part of the universe. My question is, how do you, if that exists, how do you select where and when? Like, how do you locate?
You don't.
just
It
go.
is. It just is.
It just
now,
is.
Stargate, anyway. So
how does it find its other point in space? You know?
Yeah. Well, that's so far beyond us. So my point was the Fermi's Paradox problem, which is I think what we're trying to title this is, we have grown so much in our understanding that has completely offset and added to and removed parts of that equation to where we need to reevaluate our behavior and what we're going to do. Now, does that mean we should not do a multi-planet? Well, like if you Google existence and some of these other things, bigger questions to Google's DeepMind or some of these other AIs, they come back with some pretty cool answers, like simulation theory and whatnot. But
I got Perplexity open right now. Let's give it a shot. Hey, Perplexity, I know you're not sponsoring this, but I would love for you to. I use you consistently.
Yes. And then the idea that, so back to the original idea of could other sentient life, because that's what we really care about, could it take non-organic forms? And if you get to thinking about it, the most likely, if we made a sentient species, it'll be some kind of more eternal species, like the Bobiverse AI loaded into a probe kind of thing, or whatnot, which is why a lot of people are looking into this Atlas.
Are you saying that because we're organic, like we're imagining life as organic that will die?
Well,
right?
If you look at War of the Worlds and a lot of early sci-fi, it was organic based because it had arms,
because it's what we know,
and a head, because that's what we know. And it wasn't until the evolution of sci-fi that they started getting into like blobs. If you look at Arrival, they have completely different forms and completely different way of thinking. Isaac Asimov explored the concept of robotics and artificial intelligence. But if you think about what is the best form of something that goes out there and finds other stuff, it's AI-based probes. It is AI-based consciousnesses that are uploaded into some kind of technology that can go out there in the universe and explore without worrying about getting old or dying of viruses or old age, can continuously expand and grow.
Hopefully it's absence of emotion.
But get into the concept of like ID4 and the dangerousness of an alien life form. At the point that you can send out a probe that can just go forever and just explore and explore and explore at faster than light travel and robotics, a lot of the fear of resource gathering becomes practically irrelevant. And when we start looking into the dispersion of what we would consider to be resources, oxygen, water, stuff that we can make food with, or maybe even transcending food altogether and looking at what's the level
smoothies.
No, there's this there's a name for this thing.
How to sustain yourself without taking in fuel.
Species level versus two. So there's this whole thing about societal classifications based on energy utilization. I'm completely blanking on the name of it, but like a level 1 species can fully harvest the energy of their planet. A level 2 harvests all the energy of their solar system. And then it's like Dyson spheres come into play at some point. And
what's a Dyson sphere?
Well, imagine if we took all the resources in our solar system and tried to build a structure that encompassed our sun so that we could have all the power of our sun fully utilized. So, in order to utilize all the power of the sun, which is going to be light and heat,
Encapsulate it.
and radio waves and whatever else, we'd have to fully encapsulate it with something. There's not enough matter in our solar system to do that. So, we'd have to start going to neighboring solar systems and grabbing up their shit too. And I don't even know how many we'd have to grab up in order to be able to build a structure that fully encompassed a sun.
So that's the theory of the stage 3 society or class 3 society.
I think
Is
that's
they're
a stage
harnessing
2.
shit. So what is 3 then? God?
3 is like a galaxy, like all of the
Encapsulating a galaxy?
galaxy. Yeah, well, fully utilizing a galaxy's worth of energy. With imagine a whole galaxy with nothing but Dyson spheres or something.
All the star, every star in it has a sphere on it.
Yeah, something along those
I
lines.
bet that exists. I think the universe is far too big, and based on the numbers we already looked at, I believe that there's life.
So think about, we have enough information to know. So what is it, a quote from Einstein? I've quoted it twice today. Knowledge is knowing what you don't know. So there's an observable universe, and based on a variety of data, we can start extrapolating out, wow, words. We know that there's multiple galaxies. We can tell that there's multiple galaxies, and multiple galaxies make up even bigger things out there. Like there's nebulas that have multiple galaxies in them, and there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions and billions of galaxies out there. Each galaxy can have multiple solar systems. Multiple solar systems can have multiple planets, and a propensity for life based on the right elements of the right time and the right solar system configuration.
2 trillion. Estimated, Hubble estimates 2 trillion galaxies in the observable.
And that's just the observable.
That fraction we were talking about earlier.
So multiply that by another. So a trillion.
By another 5 trillion. Yeah.
So a trillion trillions.
There is no word for that number.
So based on, so let's go with the concept of in the documented observable universe. So remember that planet I was telling you that we can see? It is with less than X the size of Earth. It is the right distance from a sun. That is, it's in the Goldilocks zone of a sun is. So the Goldilocks zone is it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's in the right orbit, it's in a stable orbit. The sun is just the right kind to put out the right kind of light and heat and whatnot, be able to give the world its energy, unlike Pluto, but not like Mercury, blah, blah. So it's in a Goldilocks zone. It's the right size. It looks like it has the right chemistry for a possible biosphere. It looks like it might have water and carbon and oxygen, and it might have the components of molecule, or it might have the right molecules to show that it does have life on it. So let's go with saying that planet does have life. So of the trillions of solar systems, we've already possibly found one that does have life. So now we get into the blinking light analogy, or the Christmas light analogy, or the light bulb analogy? Oh my God, somebody please put in the comments. So imagine you're in a field, like let's call it Montana, and you have a light bulb that blinks on and off immediately over there, and another one that goes off and on over there, and it's a random amount of time between them going on and off. They could go off at the same time. That represents the amount of time that passes in the universe versus the amount of time a civilization could exist, is how they've done that analogy. So that, let's correlate it to the planet we know. Let's take the bad route, and let's say we don't correct our behaviors and everybody on Earth dies in 100 years because of global warming and famine and war and lack of water, and it gets to be too hot in the majority of the planet and all the humans die. That other planet could have let's say they don't have that happen to them, because it could happen to them as well. Let's say they don't follow this pattern, they get off planet, they find us, they get to us, and then let's say that takes 1,000,000 years for that to happen. Could be. I mean, they could be at amoeba stage, they could be at fish in the water stage of evolution, who knows, right? They could just be at bacteria stage, whatever. So let's say it takes them 1,000,000,000 years to get off that planet. Nothing happens to destroy the civilization, but in 1,000,000,000 years to get that planet, by the time they get to here, what would they find?
What would they be? Our planet will be
Well,
gone
that
by the time they get here.
in 1,000,000,000 years, let's say humans die off in 100 years. In 1,000,000,000 years after that, what would they find if they came and visited here?
It would be gone.
Exactly.
The sun would be already engulfed. There would be no evidence of Earth. Well,
No,
I don't know how long it's going to take, but
it's it's still billions of years before the sun burns out or implodes or whatever. So in theory, the planet will still be here in 1,000,000 years in some form. But if all humans died off in 1,000,000 or in 100 years, the chances of any species coming to Earth and finding anything to even prove that we were here in 1,000,000 years is very low. In 1,000,000,000
yeah,
years is zero.
yeah.
So let's say we don't die off. We conquer the bullshit. Let's say AI saves us all, right? And we become a spacefaring civilization. When we get to that planet, we could find anything from nothing to bacteria to full vegetation to sentient species as caveman style to a planet that's just been a more advanced technology than us. We don't know.
We're not going to stumble upon a more advanced planet. We're not going
We
to
could. We could.
stumble upon it. They're going to know we're coming if they're far more advanced. They're going to
Yeah.
meet us.
Yeah. They'll probably, like, let's say that that planet actually has a sentient species that is way more technologically advanced. You're right. They would detect us on the way. Visually, radioscopically, or maybe some other scanning technology. Maybe maybe they have faster than light drones that are out there scanning and finds us beforehand, whatever. Who knows? The ability for them to come out and meet us and greet us away from their planet would probably happen. Or maybe we get there and they're like, they never became spacefaring, but they're super advanced anyway. Who knows?
Don't you think that every evolution in general, no matter where it's taken place, in our galaxy here on Earth or in another part of the universe that we can't see, wouldn't it? Of course, it makes sense, but doesn't it make sense that everything would evolve the exact same way from a
No,
cell? Why?
no. So
Environmental factors, of course.
environmental factors play a big role in it. So if we talked about third party problem with a planet that evolved life and it ended up in
Yeah,
very
that's
different
true.
circumstances, abundance of resources plays a big role. You could have a planet that has a better balance of food, a more availability of food or energy sources or something like that. Biology can grow completely differently. Look at the biodiversity of humans based on genetics. You and I are both men, but you have different eyesight than I do. You have different hair structure than I do. You have different skin tone than I do. You have a different ability to learn than I do. You have a different genetic profile for physical prowess than I do. And I'm not saying yours is good or better or worse. I'm just saying it's different. So we're just two people, and in every single human is different to some degree. Like even identical twins, if I understand correctly, have different fingerprints and different iris prints. And they think a little bit differently, and they do a little bit differently, and they can react to stuff a little differently. There are humans on the planet that have significant biological changes compared to us. And some win and some don't. Who knows what that has? Survival of the fittest will play some role in evolution on every planet, depending on what survival means on that planet. If you had just an overabundance of food, but you don't have the intrinsic desire to fight over it, it's like imagine us and what could have happened. And this is just a thought experiment. And maybe it's a non starter. I don't know. But I've always wondered what would have happened if the people who originally came up with the idea of God had the idea that it was benevolent built into it to the point to where we always had to be benevolent instead of fighting over ideology or which religion was best, or and they just accepted it different. So there's the multiversal concept, and some people have said we've proved it, or I don't know. But the multiversal, one of the multiversal concepts, I'm not talking about the Marvel one. I'm talking about the actual one.
That's the best one.
But the multiversal is designed for every choice or every possible outcome branches a new universe. Therefore, if you chose to turn left at a light instead of right, there exists a universe where you did left, right, and straight for for that decision. And then that affects the next thing, and then that affects the next thing. And then you get into like determinism versus free will, and that gets to be a whole nother topic and layer on top of it. So what if they had discovered something ahead of us? What if their sun and their composition caused them to all be the same color and nobody had to have a different color skin? How would that play into their treatment of each other? So one of the things in Babylon 5, when you really get into the series, is there's different generations of species. So like one generation grows up together and then another generation grows up together. And one of the ancient races had a genetic lottery win at the beginning. So they called their genetics at the beginning perfect. They would reach maturity and then they would stop aging. What if they had had that genetics from the jump, like in a real world? And is it possible for humans to at some point have that happen? Who knows? Maybe it did and we killed them because of war. But anyway, so in that theory is there was no risk of cancer, there was no risk of aging, it was a perpetual life, and they just continued to learn and their brains could handle the data the way it needed to. And the guy ends up being millions of years old, but he's the last one because all the others died off due to some event that caused their life to cease. So they weren't like invincible, they were just immortal. And what if that happened on one of these others? What if they were able to self adapt because their genetic structure is different? So we have our life based on a double helix. What if they had a trihelix? What if they had something else? What if they didn't have genetics the way they did? Maybe it was a linked chain instead of a helix. There's all these different ways that life could be. What if it's silicon-based life instead of carbon-based life? That's a possibility too.
How is that a possibility? Why would we think that? Do we know of any silicone-based organism?
I might be making this up, but I could have swore we found a silicon-based life form on Earth. And it exists in a very extreme environment that's very unique and it's not complex. It's like microscopic, but it exists.
If it's what defines a life form?
The ability, well, right. So what defines consciousness?
Right. A silicon-based life form is a hypothetical organism whose biochemistry is built primarily on
But I
silicon
thought they
atoms.
found one. Anyway, so it's a hypothetical. It is possible. It is scientifically possible based on the information we know. So depending on the abundance of silicon versus carbon,
one or the other, right? Or it could, I guess, it could be almost any other element.
No. There actually, my understanding is, and I could be wrong. I mean, I'm gonna say that a lot today. Don't hate me, people. This is just based on what I know.
No, please
There
hate
are
him. Leave it in the comments. Hate him all you want in the comments. It's perfectly
the
okay.
availability of electrons plays a role in its ability to create life, is my fundamental understanding of it. So carbon, so you know how carbon creates diamonds because it has a certain number of electrons and protons, and it can join with other atoms differently. So like gold can't
Under pressure.
doesn't create crystalline structures like carbon does. Carbon creates a diamond different. Silicon can't create a diamond like structure because it has a different number of electrons. So like moissanite is the great example. Moissanite has a different molecular property than carbon, and because of that it doesn't have what we call the durability that carbon does, because it's carbon's crystalline structure is stronger because of its number of electrons than the way silicon bonds to other things, because it bonds with carbide, or silicon carbide bonds up differently together and it creates a spiral instead of the matrix form. Anyway, this is the edge of my knowledge. But my point was, what if it's silicon based? What kind of, and it has a completely different structure, so it creates a completely different thing. And now that touches on another topic that I love to debate, and that is the presence of sentient life before ours. So we've had multiple before humans. So this is a thought experiment I've seen several times debated. So remember how we were talking about if you wiped out all humans and you came back a billion years later, let's say the sun still exists in the state it is now, it hasn't changed. The earth would eat and change over and rotate and go through cycles, and it would change everything. And every discernible detection of civilization could, not guaranteed, but could be eradicated. And that's one of the things that's been really interesting is people have found stuff in places that doesn't make sense on Earth. And that makes it interesting because they said that it is possible that there could have been a sentient life 10 billion or more years ago. And when we came along, our understanding of geology is completely wrong because their civilization already harvested, created buildings, and left our planet well before anything. And then that civilization got gobbled up by the continual cycle of, planets shifting and volcanoes and asteroids and
Yeah, there was a few
heat
events in
changes.
history that would require humans to move, like the Great Ice Age would have been
Yeah.
one. There's a couple of them,
Well,
right?
we got to remember, ice ages are cyclical, and there's not been just one. There's been many over the course of Earth. There was just one that we know of that killed the dinosaurs that we paid a lot of attention to because that's scary to us. But it's not the only one that has ever been. There's I think it's called the Merovingian cycles, something like that, where the Earth doesn't always have the same orbit. Every now and then, the orbit changes, and our planet orbits a little bit further as part of the rotation from the sun and can put us into ice ages. And then other times, it orbits closer, which puts us into the heat cycles. So, like, we have found civilizations hundreds of feet, if not more, under the water where they have built cities similar to the Egyptian pyramids or the old Greek stuff that's underwater. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Did mermen build this? And that's where mermen start getting these concepts of, like, we found structures under the water. And they're like, oh, that thing just sank. It's like, well, no, hold on. Right now, we know our water level is going up right now. It's the ocean level is increasing based on
Polar
the
caps melting.
melting from global warming of the ice caps. That ice that's sitting well above the water level is going down to water level by melting, and that's raising the total amount of water. How much ice did there used to be? Well, half the planet or better was covered in ice at some point. We know this much. And that means that part of the land that is now covered by water used to be exposed, which completely changes our understanding of how humanoids used to get from one side of the planet to the other. It changes everything. But we do know that there are areas that are under hundreds of feet of water now that used to be above water. So, like, even that concept in more recent history completely throws out concepts that we had 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Our understanding is completely different. So the idea that a reptilian sentient species became spacefaring on Earth and left Earth due to a catastrophic event like global cooling or global warming that could have been natural, or they could have made it themselves. Like, they could have caused global warming and had to leave the same way it looks like we might
Same
have.
way we're doing it right now,
Yeah, it could
burning
have.
fuel.
Yeah, and that's one of the things they talk about is the overuse of a fuel source could necessitate the leaving of the planet and then reselling somewhere else. And that
Makes
has
sense.
happened, like that happened in Foundation, if I understand correctly. But anyway, the toxification of a planet causing us to leave has happened in multiple sci-fi series and has been talked about for generations. But that there's no way for us to guarantee with our technology today that it hasn't already happened. So the idea that there isn't a sentient species living off of Earth is impossible is idiotic at best. And we should honestly assume that it is and prepare for it than assume that it isn't and be arrogant.
Let us know what you
And
think in the comments.
when we talk about another species living on Earth, we get back to the three body problem concept of the escalation and capabilities based on the escalation of technology. If you think about how long it took us to get from stone tools to guns, is longer than it took us to go from basic old style gunpowder single load muskets to nuclear weapons. Even though the technology that you would have to learn and understand from a scientific or manufacturing capabilities is so much harder from a human once they knew it to get from A to B to B to C, right? Like think about the technological loop. It's a
Ellipse.
no, it's not parabolic, exponential curve. And we're in that part of exponential curve where every day science is making breakthroughs faster than we ever could have imagined, and it's just accelerating as we go up. So like engines, space engines, like the ability to have a space engine in a month, a design for one, or an idea, like technologies are advancing so fast, we've gotten to the part to where, okay, battery design. Let's use battery design. It's a great one. Let's use battery design. So if you think about battery design back in olden days, you could, if you came up with the concept, you could build it and get it to market and revolutionize it without having to worry about being eclipsed by somebody else creating a better one and getting it to market before yours. But nowadays, we can come up with a battery technology and it may not be worth to get it to market, even if it'd be revolutionary compared to the last one, because the next one's already being almost brought to market or to concept and being proven valid. And that we might be able to get that one to market faster than the one that may be revolutionary compared to one that we have today. So a great example of that is solid state batteries. We came up with, not we, me, but somebody else, another smarter
Yeah, it was me, guys.
Came up with the idea of another type of lithium-based, solid-based battery. But cost, materials, and all that were like, well, we could, but there's already this other one that uses a different mixture that would be better. Why don't we just wait for that one? And then while they're waiting for that one, they came up with another one. So while we're still using non-solid state lithium based batteries for a lot of our electronics, a gel based, lithium based, there's this new concept that's hitting, and it probably is going to get to mass production or is mass production capable, that uses no rare minerals whatsoever, none. And it uses silicone and, or not silica and some other stuff. And we can literally just go outside and harvest it out of dirt and a few other things and make it. And it's just like, cool. And does it have a better capacity? Not necessarily, but the ability to charge it better and the ability to mass produce it makes it different. So change your mind thinking. So right now, do you buy a car from the manufacturer with a tank of gas and when it runs out, get rid of the car? No, we refill it. So why? So let's say the battery doesn't hold more power, but the battery is easily chargeable and is safer. Then what if we just made changeable fuel cells? But it's safer. What if you could have one in your car and one in your trunk? What if it's lighter? What if it's more durable? What if it's safer in fires? The whole paradigm changes versus the lithium ion pack in the bottom of a car. And that constant change of this thing's better and this thing's better and this thing's better changes everything as how we understand. And we can't just take one technology, expect it to be that for the rest of our lives and run with it because it's changing too fast. Graphics cards are another great one. In my lifetime, we went from nothing to something that can mimic a human, and I'm starting to have trouble telling the difference. Did you see the thing about Tilly, the AI?
No.
Look up AI actress. I think it's Tilly, T-I. It's a AI-based actress that looks so good and can be used in theory to replace actual actors and actresses.
Aesthetic talent, an actress with social media, but no actual past.
Let's get to know each other, and thanks for watching.
Well, there isn't actually much to get to know about Tilly Norwood. She doesn't exist except on screen.
Right,
Tilly, 100% AI generated.
3 months ago, We were watching Will Smith eating spaghetti and grossed out because of how fugly it was. 6 months before that, barely had to, or was it a year before that? We barely even had the concept of Will Smith eating spaghetti being generated by AI. And now we have actors and actresses potentially competing against an AI model.
And bands, like really good music.
And what will happen in 2 days or in a week?
It is ridiculous.
Sora 2 is now announced and is available to the public, if I remember correctly, by OpenAI. And I think that's what's going to power something even better to what we were just looking at.
It's crazy.
Like Tilly may never make it to theaters because OpenAI may make it to where everybody has access to a Tilly or something better than Tilly 3.0. And we'll all be making our own movies with Sora 2 or Sora 3, which may be out in a couple months. We can't eat like we can't even use the coolest thing because the next coolest thing's already on the horizon. The next cooler thing's on the horizon. It's wild.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
Concept of the
that's going to create
a
situation for developers and
we originally
research and development.
Early. Well, I talked about you need to, if you detect it, you need to destroy it because their exponential curve may be faster than yours, and it may be that they will bypass you before you even know what is happening, and you may not have another chance to destroy them down the line. Oh, for goodness sake. So when I was talking about the dark forest, where if you detect a life form, you better nuke it before they are unnukable. If you think about that exponential curve, theirs may be better than yours, and they may be able to surpass you in technology, and you then be undefeatable by you before you get another chance, before they become dangerous, because of that exponential curve. So Tilly, because the movie industry was set up in a way that the actors tried to stop Tilly and they can't, and I told you they were never going to be able to. I told you that months ago. I told you. Tilly and the concept of Tilly and what comes after Tilly is going to replace everybody in acting for major movie production before it all implodes. I told you it was going to happen. That exponential curve changes everything. And our ability to understand what is an alien and has aliens been here is even in question. So, in the three-body problem, there's a, what was it, a photon, a phion, God, I can't remember the word. It was a single proton, if I remember correctly, that gets modified by them, turned into a supercomputer and sent to us and observes us in real time through quantum mechanics and can interact with all our stuff. And we didn't know about it until it already become too late. So the idea that aliens haven't been here and that we know they haven't been here is stupid from that standpoint altogether.
I agree with that completely.
We don't know if they've been here.
I do.
We may not be able to detect them being here. And
I think they've been here.
The equation is bullshit. And we need to start acting as if A, we're in a dark forest until proven otherwise. And B, we need to pull together and work as if if there is a more powerful, more sentient species out there, and we need to act like one unified species. And if I can deliver anything from this is, and I hope somebody at least fast forward to hear this part of it. This is the part you guys need to hear. We need to act we need to act as if there's a sentient species, and we need to pull our shit together, and we need to start working together so that we can be prepared in case there is, and we should act as if there is. Period.
Agree with that. What do you guys think about the Fermi Paradox? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please hit subscribe if you did make it this far, and we do appreciate it. My name is Chris McIntyre, and depending on the day...
We need a TLDR. TLDR, Fermi's Paradox, is ignorant. It's interesting. It's on the right track. It's ignorant, and we should be preparing for the eventuality of meeting aliens because we don't know enough to even be able to understand our own equation.
There it is. Hit subscribe. We'll see you later. Peace.